Hello everyone, and welcome to today's book review. I'm incredibly excited to be diving deep into Lois McMaster Bujold's memory, part of her epic Vorkosigan Saga. Now, while this book falls within the science fiction genre, I must say it's much more than spaceships, galactic warfare, or political intrigue. It's a deeply human story about personal growth, loss, and self-discovery. So buckle up as we take a journey through the life of one of the most beloved characters in the saga, Miles Vorkosigan. Before we jump into the specifics, I'd like to provide some context for those of you who may not be familiar with the Vorkosigan Saga. It's a long-running series that blends space opera with military fiction and political drama. However, one of the greatest strengths of the series is how it evolves, moving beyond its original roots to focus on personal relationships, character development, and emotional depth. Memory, which marks a significant turning point in Miles Vorkosigan's life, is no exception. A brief overview of Memory's plot. Memory begins with a shocking event. Miles Vorkosigan, a former mercenary fleet admiral who has always relied on his intellect and resourcefulness to outmaneuver his physical limitations, suffers a life-changing seizure while on a mission. The event is not only physically debilitating but leads to a critical failure in a military operation, causing him to falsify a report to cover up the incident. This is a crucial moment in the book, as it sets in motion a cascade of consequences that leads to his forced retirement from the Dendari mercenaries and his position in the Imperial Security, ImpSec. Miles's career is his identity. It's how he's defined himself, and now, all of that has been stripped away. Forced into early retirement, he spirals into depression, struggling to figure out who he is without his titles, without the adrenaline of dangerous missions, and without the constant need to prove himself to others. This is where Memory really begins to shine, as it transforms into a story about the quest for personal meaning, for reinvention, and ultimately, for redemption. Theme 1. Identity and the search for meaning. The central theme of Memory is identity. Specifically, what happens when the very core of who we believe we are is taken away. For Miles, his entire life has been a battle to overcome his physical disabilities and prove his worth. Born with severe physical deformities due to a prenatal assassination attempt on his parents, Miles's body has always been his weakest point. But his mind has been his salvation. His sharp wit, strategic brilliance, and audacity have helped him carve out a space for himself in a galaxy that constantly underestimates him. In Memory, however, his mind betrays him. The seizures that result from an old injury threaten his ability to lead, to command, and to operate with the efficiency that he's always prided himself on. When he covers up his condition, it isn't just a tactical error. It's a symbol of his deep fear of losing control and becoming irrelevant. The core question Bujold raises in Memory is, who are we when everything that once defined us is stripped away? This theme of identity isn't limited to Miles. It's universal, resonating with anyone who has ever experienced a major life shift, be it retirement, the loss of a career, or a change in health. As we watch Miles wrestle with these questions, we can't help but reflect on our own lives and the way we define ourselves. In the opening sections of the novel, we see Miles flounder. He's used to being in the thick of action, making split-second decisions, leading armies, and outmaneuvering political opponents. But now, with no mission, no role, and no future as a commander, he faces an existential crisis. This marks one of the novel's most poignant themes: the fear of irrelevance. Without his titles, without his accomplishments, what does he have left? How does he rebuild a life that's been completely centered around one all-consuming identity? The way Bujold handles this theme is masterful. Rather than offering easy answers, she allows Miles to sit with his discomfort, to explore his pain, and to gradually come to the realization that identity is fluid. We're not static beings. Even when we lose one aspect of ourselves, we have the capacity to grow, to evolve, and to find new paths forward. This slow transformation makes Memory feel incredibly personal and intimate. Theme 2. Loss, grief, and acceptance. Closely tied to the theme of identity is the theme of loss. Memory is filled with characters grappling with loss on multiple levels, and the way Bujold explores this theme gives the novel its emotional depth. For Miles, the loss of his career isn't just a professional setback, it's a profound, deeply personal grief. His career was more than just a job. It was the core of his existence, the proof that he could overcome the limitations of his body and his background. Losing that is like losing a part of himself. The novel doesn't shy away from depicting the stages of grief that accompany such a profound loss. Miles experiences denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and eventually acceptance. Watching Miles go through these stages feels incredibly real and raw. It's not a clean, linear process. There are moments when he seems to be coming to terms with his new reality, only to backslide into despair. But through it all, there's a sense that Miles is gradually being reshaped by his experiences, becoming something new. Loss also plays a key role in the subplot involving Simon Illyan, the head of Imperial Security, and a mentor figure to Miles. Simon, too, suffers a form of loss when his eidetic memory, his most important asset as the head of ImpSec, begins to fail him. The parallels between Simon's memory loss and Miles's identity crisis are clear. Both men are forced to confront the reality that the things they've relied on for most of their lives can suddenly disappear. This connection deepens the emotional impact of the novel, showing that loss is something we all face, regardless of our status or power. The exploration of loss in memory isn't just about grief, though. It's about what comes after grief. It's about acceptance and the possibility of finding new meaning in life. Even when it feels like everything has been taken away, as Miles begins to move forward, we see the seeds of hope being planted. He may never return to his old life, but that doesn't mean he's lost forever. There's a new path ahead of him, even if he can't see it yet. Character development, the evolution of Miles Vorkosigan. For longtime readers of the Vorkosigan Saga, the character of Miles Vorkosigan has always been a whirlwind of energy, wit, and audacity. He's the quintessential underdog, always outsmarting his opponents, taking insane risks, and coming out on top. In memory, however, we see a different side of Miles, a more vulnerable, introspective version of the character we thought we knew. At the start of the novel, Miles is deeply shaken by the seizure and the forced retirement that follows. This is a man who has always defined himself by his ability to succeed against impossible odds. And suddenly, he's faced with a situation where no amount of cleverness can fix his problems. The seizures that plague him are a reminder that he's human, that he's vulnerable, and that he's not invincible. What's fascinating about Miles's character arc in memory is how it transforms him from a larger-than-life hero into a deeply relatable human being. His struggles with identity and loss make him more accessible to the reader, and his journey toward acceptance is one that many people can empathize with. He's no longer just the brilliant tactician or the unstoppable commander. He's a person dealing with real, painful emotions. By the end of the novel, Miles has undergone a profound transformation. He's still the same person at his core, sharp, resourceful, and deeply loyal. But he's learned to let go of the things that no longer serve him. His sense of self is no longer tied to his old roles, and he begins to forge a new identity, one that isn't defined by titles or achievements, but by who he is as a person. This evolution is deeply satisfying for readers who have followed his journey from the beginning. Simon Illyan and the Power of Memory. A key subplot in memory involves Simon Illyan, who, as mentioned earlier, suffers from the degradation of his eidetic memory. For years, Simon has been able to recall every detail of his life with perfect clarity, a crucial skill for his role as the head of Imperial Security. But when his memory begins to fail him, he, like Miles, faces the loss of a fundamental part of his identity. Simon's memory loss serves as both a literal and metaphorical representation of the novel's themes. Memory in the novel isn't just about recalling facts or events. It's about how we define ourselves, how we build our identities. For Simon, the loss of his memory is devastating, not just because it affects his ability to do his job, but because it strips away the thing that made him who he was. Miles's relationship with Simon is one of the emotional highlights of the novel. As Simon's memory begins to deteriorate, the mentor-student dynamic between them shifts. Miles, who has always looked up to Simon as a steadfast, almost invincible figure, is now faced with the reality of Simon's vulnerability. This change in their relationship mirrors the larger theme of memory, that even the strongest people can face loss, and that resilience doesn't come from being invulnerable, but from how we cope with our limitations. Miles's decision to help Simon, despite his own struggles, demonstrates the growth in his character. It's a pivotal moment where we see that Miles's sense of duty and loyalty hasn't diminished, even as he grapples with his own identity crisis. In fact, helping Simon find a new way forward gives Miles a sense of purpose again, proving that even in the midst of his personal turmoil, he can still make a difference in the lives of others. Simon's arc is particularly poignant because it highlights a key aspect of the novel's exploration of memory. The idea that memory is not just about the past, but also about how we shape our future. Simon's memory loss forces him to reevaluate his role in the Imperial service and his relationship with the people around him. Just as Miles is reinventing himself, Simon too must find a new way to exist without relying on his once perfect recall. In this way, Bujold links Simon's story to the novel's broader themes of identity and resilience. Both Simon and Miles are forced to rebuild their lives after losing the things that once defined them. And in doing so, they demonstrate the power of adaptation and perseverance. Political intrigue and mystery. Though memory is heavily focused on the internal struggles of its characters, Bujold doesn't neglect the broader political landscape of the Vorkosigan universe. In fact, one of the most engaging aspects of the novel is the way it balances personal growth with a tightly woven mystery and political intrigue. After his forced retirement, Miles is drawn into a new investigation, this time not as a soldier or commander, but as an investigator. When Simon Illyan's condition worsens, it becomes clear that something is amiss within the Imperial Security Organization. Miles takes it upon himself to investigate whether foul play is involved in Simon's memory loss. This investigation allows the novel to shift gears into a more traditional mystery format, adding layers of suspense and intrigue to the story. As Miles navigates the political machinations of Barrayar's ruling class, we see him employ his famous intelligence and strategic thinking in new ways. Without the ability to rely on his physical prowess or military command, Miles must rely purely on his intellect and instincts to solve the case. The political intrigue in memory is more understated compared to previous books in the Vorkosigan Saga, but it plays a crucial role in driving the plot forward. As Miles digs deeper into the mystery of Simon's memory loss, he uncovers secrets within the Barrayaran government that could have far-reaching consequences. These revelations not only keep the reader engaged, but also tie into the novel's exploration of trust, loyalty, and betrayal. Through the lens of this investigation, we also get a deeper look into the power dynamics of Barrayaran society, especially within the Imperial security apparatus. The novel subtly critiques the ways in which systems of power can become corrupt or fail the individuals within them. Simon's fall from power and his vulnerability in the face of his memory loss serve as a reminder that even those at the highest levels of authority are not immune to personal and systemic failures. Redemption and reinvention. As memory moves towards its conclusion, the themes of redemption and reinvention become central to the narrative. For Miles, this novel is less about reclaiming his former glory and more about discovering who he can be in the absence of his old roles. There's a powerful message in this. Sometimes the path to redemption isn't about going back to who we were, but about moving forward into something new. Miles's journey throughout memory can be seen as a process of letting go, not just of his career, but of the need to constantly prove himself. By the end of the novel, Miles no longer feels the same drive to be the best, to outsmart everyone, or to constantly be in control. Instead, he finds peace in accepting his limitations and recognizing that he can still have a meaningful life, even if it looks different from what he once imagined. This theme of reinvention is underscored by the changes in Miles's relationship with Simon Illyan. By the novel's end, Simon, too, has found a new way to contribute to the Empire, despite his memory loss. The parallels between their journeys highlight the novel's message that identity isn't static. We're constantly evolving, and sometimes the most important transformations come from moments of great loss or hardship. Miles's final acceptance of his new role in life is one of the most satisfying aspects of the book. After so much turmoil, he emerges not as a defeated man, but as someone who has grown, matured, and learned to find value in himself beyond his titles or accomplishments. In many ways, Memory is a coming-of-age story, but one that takes place much later in life, showing that personal growth doesn't have an expiration date. Final thoughts. Why Memory is a masterpiece. So why is Memory such a standout in the Vorkosigan Saga and in science fiction as a whole? First, it's a deeply human story. While the backdrop may be a galaxy filled with spaceships, alien worlds, and political intrigue, the heart of the novel lies in its exploration of universal human themes: identity, loss, reinvention, and resilience. Bujold uses the science fiction genre as a framework to tell a story that resonates on an emotional and psychological level, making it accessible to readers beyond just sci-fi fans. Second, the character development in Memory is exceptional. Miles Vorkosigan has always been a compelling character, but in this novel we see him at his most vulnerable and most real. Watching him struggle, fail, and ultimately find a new way forward makes for a profoundly satisfying reading experience. His growth throughout the novel feels earned, and his journey of self-discovery is something that many readers will find deeply relatable. Third, Memory seamlessly blends personal narrative with larger plot elements such as the political intrigue and the mystery surrounding Simon Illyan. Bujold expertly balances these different story threads, ensuring that the novel remains engaging on multiple levels. Whether you're drawn to character-driven stories or intricate political mysteries, there's something in Memory for everyone. Finally, the novel's exploration of memory, both literal and metaphorical, is brilliant. Bujold shows us how memory shapes who we are, how it can be both a gift and a burden, and how the loss of memory forces us to rethink our identities. Simon Illyan's struggle with his failing memory is a powerful narrative device that adds depth to the novel's themes of loss and reinvention. Memory is a masterclass in character development, emotional storytelling, and thematic depth. It's a novel that transcends its genre to explore the very essence of what it means to be human. Whether you're a longtime fan of the Vorkosigan Saga or new to the series, Memory is a must-read. It's a story that will stay with you long after you've finished the last page, leaving you with much to reflect on in your own life. If you've read Memory, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of the novel resonated most with you? And if you haven't read it yet, I highly encourage you to give it a try. Thanks for watching this deep dive into Memory. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth book reviews.